let me introduce myself. My name is Russell Cooper, and I'm the founder at Tailored Fundraising. And joining me is one of our trainers and coaches, Deb. Managing the chat and the Q&A is one of our coaches, Marianne. And also thanks to Kavina, who might come on the screen and wave. She's our marketing director. She's going to be running the slides. So we're excited to be with you, and we're looking forward to the next hour. We'll be talking about engaging churches as financial partners and advocates. We're going to be looking at 4 different areas. Number 1, realities of a church partnership. Number 2, how to connect with a church. Number 3, what materials to have available. And number 4, important information to share with a committee. And I want to let you know that throughout the webinar, we want to hear from you. At the top left of your screen, you should see a chat button. This is where you can tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and put any comments you want to share with us. Make sure you select all panelists and attendees so everyone can see. The other button I want to draw to your attention is the Q&A button. If at any time you have a question about church engagement, just please put that question in the box. Marianne will either answer you via direct message, or we'll just, tackle it as a whole group because it might be helpful for everyone. This is a live webinar, so we can learn from each other. So just ask as many questions as you want, and we'll do our best to get to them. We'll also be giving you a couple of poll questions throughout the webinar to get feedback on your current engagement with coaches.
We get a ton of questions around how to connect with the church. So we're really excited to offer this webinar because we're excited about offering just answers to some of those questions, as many of them as we can. So there's 5 different scenarios that we want to look at today. Connecting with, first of all, your home church. Secondly, a past church. Then a church that someone you know attends. A church that's in your denominational network. And then a church that you have no connection with at all. And the materials that we are recommending to connect with these churches are really similar, but that initial contact is going to look slightly different with each one.
Yeah. And before we dive into how to engage a church, we really need to explore the realities of a church partnership, because there are great benefits and also some challenges to church partnership. Because this isn't just about a church giving you money. You're now an extension of their ministry, and a partnership goes 2 ways. So there's a benefit. I'll go benefits and challenges. Benefit, generally speaking, churches have a higher capacity for partnership, anywhere from $100 a month to over $1,000 a month. On average, we see churches partnering in the $200 to $300 a month range. But if the church discontinues their giving, it can be difficult to replace them. And unfortunately, we see a lot of churches not giving any heads up about discontinuing. So you're kind of left in an immediate deficit. Another benefit is often they have capacity to cover one-time expenses that come up down the road, maybe new schooling expenses or vehicle purchases, building repair, new ministry projects, stuff like that. And they can be a great place to reach out to when things like this come up. But they have a limited window sometimes to be approached before they set their budget for the coming year. So if you've reached out and they have already set their budget, ask them when is the best time to reconnect and try again later. Another benefit is they may be able to provide resources while on furlough, like housing, a car, building space for meetings. This is more responsibility from you before you go and while you're on furlough. Another benefit, they can partner in other non-financial ways, like sending short-term teams to be a part of the ministry. One of those challenges, sending short-term teams to be a part of your ministry. Sometimes this is more of a hassle than a help, and be honest about that and communicate in love what you are set up to host, and how you're set up, if that's beneficial. And then another great benefit is the church can offer spiritual guidance and accountability, as well as lend credibility to the ministry. So I want to ask our first poll question. How many church partners do you have? Okay. Either I have no church partners, I have between 1 and 5. I have 6 to 10, 11 to 20. That'd be amazing. More than 20, or I'm just starting my fundraising journey. So just pick between one of those. And we want to see it. We'll share the results with you. Let's take a guess. What's everyone's guess about the top answer? Deb, go.
I think 1 to 5.
Marianne?
Yeah, I was thinking 1 to 5 as well.
Oh, and participants are taking guesses too. I love it. I'm going to go 1 to 5. And it's 1 to 5 by 67%. All right.
We win.
There are 4% of the people have 11 to 20 partnership. 3 people on this call have more than 20 church partnerships. That is really incredible.
Yeah.
So Deb?
Yeah. So Russell took you through some of the realities of a church partnership. And now if you've decided to move forward with it, the first thing that you want to do is learn the church culture. We encourage you strongly to do your homework. So we want you to learn as much as you can about the church before you make that initial contact. So how do you do that? First of all, let's look at their website. On their website, you can see what their denomination is and what their theology is. Is there a missions culture in the church? And if not, do you want to invest the time in helping to create one? What kinds of projects is this church a part of? Really important, what is their strategic missions focus? Is it unreached people groups? Could it be discipleship? Do they have a burden and a passion for evangelism? Or could it be church planting? Maybe it's right around the corner, local or urban missions. So this is more of an important question that I think that we realize, because if we're inviting ownership of something that the church doesn't have a strong connection to, then the relationship isn't likely to last. So if your ministry is anti-trafficking and the church's strategic focus is church planting, then it might be a stretch for them to partner with you because you're going to be outside of that focus. All right, after you've done that research, if you know someone in the church, talk to them to find out more about what's the best way to approach the church. Who do I speak to in order to get things started? Is there a missions committee? Is there an application process? Do they even partner with people outside of their church? All of this is really important information for you to gather so that you can determine if this church is going to be a good fit for you.
Right. And partnership development with individuals and churches have something in common: relationship. Whether you're starting, building, or maximizing a relationship, it's a vital part of a sustainable ministry. A church isn't just an organization. I like to say churches are people too. After you've done your research, the next thing you want to do is identify your strongest relationship within the church. This is true for a home church, a past church, a church where you have friends or family, or a church within your denomination. In your home church, this is ideally someone on staff, maybe the head pastor, missions pastor, worship pastor, someone who can help you know what the next best step is. In a past church, it's similar. If connection is still strong, go straight to the person on staff. If your connection is distant and weak, or there's new leadership, find someone in the church who can introduce you to the right people. We call these people advocates. They can do this in person. Either you visit the church service or stop by during the week, or this can be done virtually through a simple email to both of you or a video conference to make the connection. In your friend or family's church, ask them to personally introduce you to someone in leadership. In a denominational church, the best option here is to have your pastor refer you. So this can happen with a phone call, a letter, email, anything making the initial connection, vouching for you in your ministry. Or you may have a connection with like a district leader who can introduce you. Another option is for you to reach out directly. Denominations usually have a public list of every church in their network that you can use to get information to reach out. So what do you do if there is no relationship? Is it worth it? And we say absolutely. You never know what God is going to do. We have countless stories of seeing God do the unexpected when we are willing to step out on faith. But where do you start? If the church is local, show up in person and connect with the pastor if at all possible. We think that Thursdays seem to be the best day for most churches. Wednesdays can also be good, but Mondays and Fridays are typically days off for a few people in the office. So if you aren't able to connect in person, even for a brief moment, consider asking, when is the best time to come back? That initial interaction goes a long way, rather than just leaving information without the pastor having opportunity to put a face to your name. If you aren't able to come back, go ahead and leave a packet of information, which we'll talk about in a minute, with a message that you stopped by and you'll follow up soon. Ask for the pastor's card so you can follow up in a couple of days. So if you aren't able to visit a church in person, call and find out which is best, mailing information or sending it via email. Then get a name, email, or address and phone number of who to follow up with. If they prefer mail and you're out of the country, find a partner who would be willing to send the information for you. Think strategically. Take into account geography. This is especially important when you come home on furlough. How many churches can you visit in 6 months to a year? Do you want to be dragging your family all over the country? It is exhausting and expensive to visit lots of churches. And I'm sure that small percentage of people on this webinar who have a lot of church partnerships really understand that. A lot of times denominations have that approach. So something to think about. Take into account people you serve. For example, if you're serving in Japan, Japanese churches might be interested in setting a video chat or something to connect. And don't underestimate the power of small churches. One of our coaches had a client who shared with his first mission board in a meeting about a month ago. And the church said no to financial partnership. He was pretty discouraged. And then he spoke to a very small church and a Sunday school class the next weekend. There were about 35 people in the Sunday school class, and the new church came on board at $250 a month. And then 11 people filled out response cards from the class. He saw $925 in monthly partnerships come in the following 10 days, along with a $1,000 special gift. And this client commented, I felt so humbled as I thought the large church would be the generous giver. But instead, God surprised me through people I never knew. And this was during a pandemic. So make every church phone call that you can. Never convince yourself the answer is a no based on who they give toward or what projects they have going on. Here's an email that Deb received from one of her clients. I finally called the pastor at my home church in Arkansas, and he asked why it took me so long to reach out. And I explained that, we have a massive building program and that I didn't want to be seen as competing for funds. And this was met with, you can't think like that. There are people who will never give an additional dime to our building project who will at the same time jump at the chance to support you. So I'm going in June and they are putting me in the budget before I even show up.
Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So we're just going to take a minute. I don't know, Marianne, do we have any questions yet? And if you do have a question at this point, what would that be? Just put it in the chat.
Nope, we don't have any just yet. Someone says we are not getting audio, only video. I hope that's not everybody. I hope that's just
surely
one
not, or
person.
we've been losing people left and right.
Yeah.
If you're experiencing that, not on my problem. Hey, Thomas, you probably should close out Zoom and then restart Zoom and open it. You can't hear me. So Marianne, could you direct message him that?
Yep, I can.
Thanks. All right, Deb, on to you.
Okay, I don't see any questions. So yeah. All right, so once you've made your initial connection, you're going to want to learn the process for entering into a partnership. And the vast majority of churches already have a process in place. So while with individuals, you're taking the reins in the process, with churches, it's important that you let them lead you through the process because they're the ones who know what it is. So we want to be respectful of that and compliant. And while we follow their leading, that doesn't just mean that you sit on your hands until they reach out. It's still very important for you to continue to follow up to make sure that the opportunity is staying at the forefront of their minds and that those next steps are happening. You know, with COVID, we're in a unique situation where a lot of churches and their small groups and Sunday school classes are still meeting online, or they're doing some sort of hybrid of in-person and online. So you'll need to find out what their process is for introducing new missionaries during the service and also in groups and in classes. And at the end of every conversation, you want to be asking what the next step is. I think we've said that multiple times. You want to find out what the next step is and when you should expect to hear back, so that if that date comes around and you haven't heard back, you're immediately checking in with them. All right, let's say that the church says no to a financial partnership. That doesn't mean that the conversation stops there. Ask if you can pursue conversations with individuals inside the church through sharing either with the whole congregation or maybe sharing at Sunday school classes, speaking with small groups or prayer groups, or as we mentioned before, staying connected for the possibility of potential short-term teams to come visit if that's desired. And if you're looking to expand your network or even build new relationships, sometimes that you can reach out and ask for a list of their small groups or their Sunday school classes, and then also ask the main focus of each. And then you can join that Zoom call with that new group and make new friends and potentially even share your story. Now I want to talk about church packets. So when you show up to a church, whether it's a cold call or whether it's through an advocate, it's really beneficial to have a packet of information to leave with them at the end of your presentation, because we don't want to get them distracted while you're presenting. So when you show up with a packet, this shows that you've invested time in making sure that your communication is as clear as possible, which not only shows maturity, but it also shows professionalism. And to be honest, it gives them a really good glimpse into how you're going to run your ministry as well. Here's a list of 5 things that we recommend having in your church packet. First off is a handwritten note, thanking them for their consideration. I mean, how many people do handwritten notes anymore, right? You will stand out with a handwritten note. Second is a referral letter from a pastor. And this isn't just helpful in connecting with other churches in your denomination, but it goes a long way in providing credibility for your ministry to any other church as well. We also encourage you to include a very simple prayer card. Potentially also a ministry brochure. You can ask your organization if they have a ministry brochure that you can have, or it could be something that you design yourself that's specific to your ministry. And finally, something that's really easy for you to put together that we recommend is called a one-pager or a bio page. It's a one-page summary of who you are and your ministry focus. So let's look at an example. So churches are interested in your background, so it's important for you to include this information concisely. So let's start with a brief bio that might include who you are as a person, maybe your strengths, your giftings, your passion, and if your education is important to what it is that you're doing, definitely include that. And then if there's room, you could potentially also add when you came to faith. You'll also want to add your mission statement. So it's either your organization's mission statement or it could be your personal mission statement. Let me give you an example. My mission is to create a disciple-making movement among students and their families through high-quality education. All right, so mission statements use words that communicate the actions that you're going to take to make an impact in the world. Training, equipping, supporting, discipling, empowering, all of those things are action words. So that's what a mission statement is. You also want to share a 1 to 2 sentence vision statement, which is different than a mission statement. Vision tends to be focused on the impact that you want to see on the lives of the people that you're serving through your mission, through the ministry's actions. So for example, my vision is to see families in Vietnam accept the truth of who Christ is and who he's called them to be, experiencing hope and peace and freedom. Another important component is a pie chart breakdown of your budget. I would really encourage you to condense your budget into 4 categories. We want you to keep it simple and focused. So while this line item budget that everybody has, that big one that you have that's on that spreadsheet, it's really important for you to have that, but you only want to share it if someone's requested it. So it's unnecessary for you to have that much detail that you're giving to somebody unless that person is asking for it. But have it in your back pocket or in your backpack or wherever you are, because if someone's asking for it, you want to have it ready and be able to share that quickly. Most PCs and Macs have pie chart templates, and all you have to do is just plug in the numbers and then it spits out a pie chart for you. You want to make sure that it looks sharp and it looks professional. There's also a lot of design websites that you can use for free. We love canva.com, and Marianne is going to put that link in the chat. We also encourage you to think through the impact that's going to be made in each one of those categories. So you're breaking it down into 4 categories. What impact is going to happen there? All right, so for example, if we broke down one quadrant into housing, taxes, and transportation, what impact do those things unlock? Well, it makes it possible to be able to go to the people. Whereas if you have a quadrant that's about insurance or dental, life, health, all of those kinds of things, that makes it possible to stay with the people. So we always want to make the focus about impact instead of salary, because it isn't about your budget. It's about lives that are being transformed. Optionally, I've seen some people include how much they've raised so far, which shows good leadership. It also shows that you have a plan, and it shows that you're making good forward progress. Also, you want to share your giving information. So it's important that you have your contact information on there, but just as important as giving information, you want to make sure that the link that you provide is going to go directly to your actual giving page, so that it cuts down on all those clicks that they would have to go through in order to get to your giving page. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to give. And that link can be an active link. If you're sending this over email, that would be great to have that be an active link. If you're sending it over snail mail, actually both, because they could print it off too. Include a QR code, and people are used to seeing QR codes now because of the pandemic. So include that link. We use QR code monkey. Marianne, if you want to put that in the chat as well, QR code monkey. You have to look really carefully at QR code. What am I calling those websites that generate them for free, because sometimes those QR codes expire. You can also, if you use Canva, you can generate a QR code on Canva. But anyway, put that link to your giving website in the QR code, and that's a great way to capture mobile giving. Finally, it's super important to include your organization's logo. We want them to know who we're working with. And this folder doesn't have to be one of those big, large 8.5 by 11 ones. It can be a half size one if you want to. We've seen people use those as well, and they work just as well and can also save you some money. All right, Marianne, do we have some questions going on right now?
We do. Okay. First one is from Jessica. Any thoughts for situation if a pastor doesn't want to or is not comfortable making introductions for you?
What about if there's an elder that might know you? I don't know if he's not comfortable because he doesn't know you, but if there's somebody in the church that knows you, that could be a potential. What do you think, Russell?
Man, I guess we're talking about where you don't know obviously you don't know people in the church.
Right.
So, I think you have to give the pastor, there might be 2 reasons. One, he doesn't have confidence in what you're going to do with the people he introduces you to. And 2, he doesn't want to be seen as facilitating asking for money. There's not a really great solution for the second thing that pastor might be feeling. The first thing, which was, what did I say? He doesn't know what you're going to do with those contacts, or he doesn't know exactly what we're going to do with them. I think, you don't just sit down or just call this pastor and say, hey, would you introduce me to people so I could just get connected and share my ministry? You want to treat that pastor like a potential partner, because that's what they are. Even if the pastor is not going to become a monthly giver, they are a partner. So you need to sit down with them and share about the ministry and talk about impact. So I might say, could you introduce me to, and after you share, your whole story, maybe some of the information we've already talked about, could you introduce me to people that might be interested in sharing the gospel with the unreached people in Laos? So it's not about money, it's about impact. So that's what I would say.
And if there is a pastor that knows that pastor, see if they'll give him a call. Try to make any connection that you possibly can. But I agree with Russell. Sitting down and talking is the way to go.
Yeah, treat them like a potential partner.
So from Becky, we have, what is the ideal time to do a follow-up call to the church after you've made the first contact? The ideal time for a follow-up call.
Maybe a week.
Definitely,
really depends
I would
on
say
the
within a
church.
week.
Yeah, Deb, what's your experience with that?
I would say within the week, because if you drop something off, like I asked my husband about church packets
Oh, I'm
because
sorry. I
he's
thought
a pastor.
they already called and then they're following up with another phone call. But we're talking about dropping off a packet and then
If
following
they
up.
were dropping off.
Okay, pretty soon, right, Deb?
Yeah, very soon, because it's just going to get stuck, just like your mail. You get stuck with the next day's mail and the next day's mail. I would say within a couple of days. If you're dropping something off with no connection there, yeah, definitely. Or even if you've seen him or her, definitely follow up within a couple of days.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have, what if while you are making a 10-minute presentation, after 2 minutes, a strong personality in the room asks for the packet right away? I'm thinking he's probably talking about missions boards, presenting in front of a missions board.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to want to be prepared for that. I think that's a great question. I'm trying to think of how to phrase it, and Deb, if you want to interject.
I would say I have one of those. Would it be possible for me to hand them out at the end? That way, people can be focused on the live presentation and can look at that afterwards. Something like that. I don't know. What do you think, Russell? Is that
yeah,
fair?
I doubt somebody's going to say, hey, can we have a packet right now? They might just say, hey, do you have a packet of information that we could have? And I would say, oh yeah, we have that, and I'm going to give that out. I'd like to hand those to everybody after I speak, or when I finish sharing.
Or during question answer.
Yeah, or during the questioning.
During the question answer.
Yeah, during the Q&A. That's a great thing.
Okay, we have one from Jeff. He says, when I have the opportunity to do a church presentation during worship, one of my strategies is to get individual face-to-face follow-up appointments. So what are some good tips to get contacts other than just hoping that they seek me out at my table or display after the service?
2 words: response cards. And those can either be literal physical hard copy response cards, but now with the pandemic, we're seeing a lot more people make mobile response cards. So they'll have a QR code. They'll create a Google form and they'll have a QR code that goes straight to that form, and people can fill those out. So you can do either, and just ask. This is where you need help from the pastor, is to ask what is the most effective way to do this. And I've actually seen QR codes on the screen before. You could put them on your PowerPoint, or the church would even put them on the television. Like I've seen them on the television screen. So there are lots and lots of options, but response cards just with a few simple questions. I would like to be part of your prayer team. I'd like to receive your newsletters. Make sure you get their demographic information, their name, their email address, their hard copy, their street address, their phone number. Get all of the information you can, and then offer prayer you want to receive newsletters, or you'd like to be a part of the financial partnership team, or hey, I'd like to hear more, give me a call, or I'd like to meet with you in person to talk more.
If you're going to use a QR code when you're speaking, be very clear about how to use it. Not everyone knows how to use a QR code. So you'll see a QR code come up on the screen. All you need to do, and here's why I'm putting it up here. Or maybe you say, I'd love for you to XYZ what Deb just said. And I'm putting a QR code up on the screen. Just if you would just take out your phone and open your camera app and hold it up, and you might have to zoom in to the QR code, but your camera app will recognize that it's a QR code and take you to the form where you can fill out your information. So just be very clear about how that works. Hey, we might need to move forward with some of the rest of the stuff we're saying. We want to share, and then we'll get to more questions later, maybe at the end. So let's say that part of this process of church partnership is to present to the missions committee. We want to go over what you would prepare. First, ask what is the length of time that you have to share. The average time for missions committee tends to be 10 to 15 minutes. Ask what are the most important things to communicate within that time frame. What did you learn in your research? Leverage what you have in common when planning to speak with them. I'm for sure not suggesting that you make up something, but rather to highlight those parts of the ministry that will resonate with them. And actually, this format is something you can use, you can follow, whether you're sharing with a committee or congregation or even an individual. This is, if don't say anything else at all during this webinar, that is so key to partnership. Partnership is about accomplishing something together, and you need to make it clear that you want to accomplish the same things. So here are 6 sections to a presentation. First, calling. You want to share a 2-minute story of the specific moment you knew you were called to join this ministry. You don't need every detail of the story, definitely not a chronological history of the story, just a specific moment that charted the course for you to start this ministry or be a part of the ministry. Second is the mission. You want to share a mission statement. Share more info from your brochure, like how the organization has been around, how long the organization has been around, what locations you're in, the focus of the ministry, the size of the team. Third, share the need. So share information that helps people understand the challenges and problems faced in your area of service. And more important than stats is having a 2-minute story about an individual who illustrates the challenges. A key part of the need story, this is really important, is that it doesn't solve the problem. So you may have an impact story that ends great, but you may, for this particular part of your presentation, you just share up until when the problem is not resolved. And that it just illustrates the need. We want people to understand what this person's life looks like without Jesus. And don't be afraid to communicate the gravity of the need. After sharing the need, someone should say, we've got to do something about this. I was coaching a leader of a ministry, and he told me, listen, the kind of work we do is just some of the things that we see are just too graphic and they're too overwhelming to share with our potential partners. And I said, it's not a real partnership unless they know the gravity of the need. And it changed everything. People started partnering in a completely different way at completely different levels. So it's so important. The hero is only as good as the villain is bad. Okay, so if you can create awareness that a need exists, it's going to be difficult. If you can't create awareness that a need exists, it's going to be really difficult to convince people that the ministry has any relevance. The fourth thing is vision. 1 to 2 sentences, we've talked about this, on what you want to see for the people you're serving. So for example, our vision is to see God multiply laborers and send them into the harvest so that more people can experience the love and freedom of Christ. Then number 5 is a 2-minute story of someone who has been impacted through this ministry. Now, you may be just beginning and you're saying, I don't have an impact story. If you don't have a story, find one. Is there someone else? Is there someone else there where you're going to be going who has a story you can use? Ask field leadership or look at the organization's website. Where else have you heard this strategy being successful? Are there stories there? So if you are working in anti-trafficking and your organization is just starting this ministry, you're just starting this ministry, look at other anti-trafficking organizations and the success they're having and share a story like that, because that is the kind of success that you're asking God to give you. The beautiful thing about stories is that it doesn't have to be your personal story to be powerful. It just has to be a story about a real person experiencing real change. Now, number 6, financial goals and timeline. Share the specific funding need. To share Christ with the lost in Japan, we're raising $100,000 this year, or $2,500 a month. You notice how we connected it to impact, to share Christ with the lost in Japan. You also want to share your timeline and goals to create urgency. This is great. We're looking to have 50% by May to move into phase 2, or we're looking to have 80% funding by August to apply for our visas. We're looking for 100% funding by December to move into full-time ministry. So as far as having a specific amount, this is difficult with churches because their capacity to give doesn't necessarily match the size of the church. However, we do encourage you to pray about whether you should ask for a specific amount or not. If there's a familiarity there, then having a specific amount can be really effective. But if you're new and the relationship is new, it might be a bit presumptuous to ask for something specific. Sometimes churches will ask, how much are you thinking? And if they ask you this, you better have a number. Otherwise, you're creating an obstacle to them giving, and you want to lower as many obstacles as possible. So pray and share a generous amount for them to consider. Now, finally, show up early. And please choose appropriate attire. Feel free to ask the church what that is. A traditional conservative church might lean toward business professional attire. Churches that have a mostly younger congregation may be a lot more casual, but do not look like you just rolled out of bed and threw on the first thing you could reach. At the very least, you should be put together intentionally. So I want to take a minute to look at our second poll question. What is the average monthly amount you receive from a church partner? What is the average monthly amount you receive from a church partner? Up to $100 a month, between $100 and $500 a month, $500 to $1,000 a month, or over $1,000 a month? Or you don't have an answer.
Are we guessing again?
Sure.
Go ahead, you start.
Attendees, I say 100 to 500.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, well, we already said, we see an average of 200 to 300, so it'd be kind of counterproductive if we said something else. If you want to put in the chat what you think, that'd be fine too. We'll just give it a second, and I don't know who runs the polls, but somebody runs the polls, and they're going to end it. And here it comes. And we were right, 66%, 44 people out of this webinar say between $100 and $500 a month. So, and no one over $1,000 a month. Interesting. All right, it can be helpful to show up to a missions committee meeting with some communication materials like your church packet, but you may not be able to afford to have a full packet for each person in the room. But do as much as you can, and remember, whatever you hand out, you want to do so after you've spoken, so people are paying attention. Handing it out during a Q&A time might work as well, since some people may have budget questions that your handout will answer. So if you need to keep it simple, we recommend at least having a one-pager with your bio, mission, vision, and a pie chart budget, and either a recommendation letter from a pastor or if you don't have one of those, a general fundraising letter geared towards the specific church. That'll work. And make sure at least one of those has your contact information on it.
Absolutely. Russell, do you want to take time for a question, or do you want to keep going and do questions at the end?
Let's do questions at the end.
Okay. All right. All right. In wrapping up your missions conversation, before you leave the building, don't forget to gather up the following information. Who is your main contact moving forward? Because it might not be the same person who connected you with the church and got you into the room. Another question is, when should you expect to hear from them? Get a specific date and then mark your calendar with that date and follow up if you don't hear from them by that date. And whether the church partners with you on the spot or whether it's later on, there's a few key questions that you want to have answered. Number one, when is giving going to start? How long is the commitment? And if there is an end to the commitment, when's the best time to reapply? So remember, because they set their budgets at different times, you don't want to miss that limited window. Can they help you connect with individuals who are in the church? Can I share with small groups or Sunday school classes? Might it be possible for me to speak to the congregation during a worship service, or maybe a Wednesday night or a prayer night? Would the church be able to have a space where I could plan and have a fundraising event, or would the church even actually host a fundraising or sponsor a fundraising event for me?
Deb,
And
I have a question about this.
Sure.
And I hope I don't throw a curve, too much of a curveball. So because I'm asking the question, I'm asking it to Deb and Marianne. So I've used this approach. I have actually asked individuals in the church to partner with me before going to the church and asking the missions committee to partner with the ministry, because I've run up against, well, since our church is giving you $200 to $300 a month, we don't want you asking any people in our church to partner. And we all know that if you ask people, there might be one person who gives you $200 to $300 a month in that church. You're gonna raise a lot more funding with individuals in the church than probably the church as a whole. So how do you handle? What do you recommend? I mean, I know what I don't want to be. You don't want to be shady, but it's really something to consider. So Deb, Marianne.
Yeah, honestly, Russell, I have never run into that, but definitely have had clients that have run into that. So
yeah, right.
Personal speaking, I've not. But I would say it is kind of tricky because you want to honor the wishes of your church or the church and the pastor, the mission pastor. But I would think that if people were to approach you and they are wanting to give, then I would think that they wouldn't have an issue with that.
Sure.
But you're asking like specifically wanting to ask individuals when the church has asked you not to? No,
before you've communicated with the church, like
oh yeah.
A desire for a partnership with the church. Yes, it's actually happened to a lot of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, approaching them beforehand.
Yeah.
Then
and yeah. Honestly, if you don't know, I wouldn't ask. I would just, and I don't know. I don't want to be shitty, but
yeah.
I don't want to rob the people of the blessing of a partnership. And if God is calling them to be a part of it. So anyway, Deb, any hesitations?
Yeah, Deb, what do you think?
I mean, if you have established relationships with people in a church,
right,
that's not being shady.
And I would do that. I really would do that first. So, okay, I'm going to let you go on, Deb. But I think it's a really important thing because it really could cut off a lot of potential partnerships. So, go ahead.
Mhm. But make sure if you do talk to the church and you haven't pursued individuals first, and you've pursued the church first, make sure it's okay with the church before you pursue individuals, because we've had clients run into that situation
Yeah,
too, which
right.
hasn't been good. So, be straight up honest with that. Okay. The other thing that you can ask churches to do is to refer you to other churches, because they know each other. All the pastors know each other, so why not? Um, and actually, this can be really good for churches who can't partner financially, because maybe they can still help connect you to either churches or even individuals within their own network that may want to partner with you. And finally, this is so important. Ask what's the best way to stay in touch, because some churches may have expectations but may not clearly communicate them. So, is there an annual report you'd like for me to prepare for you? What information should that report include? Are emails okay? How often do you want them? What kinds of things would your congregation want to hear about? And you should know that from your research. Walk away knowing exactly what your communication and your relationship needs to look like for that coming year. And for those of you who are overseas, it's likely that you can Zoom in during a Sunday morning or an evening service. So ask if that's something that they'd be interested in having you do. You could also send a short video in place of a live video option, and then you could update the congregation on how God's using them to transform lives and thanking them for their partnership. We've even had people who have done a video presentation and sent it, and then they've had a Facebook Live event that following week to be able to answer questions and even be able to do those mobile response cards. So that's an option too. So how do you increase funding from churches? Well, be prepared and be intentional. Remember, fundraising is about building relationships. So be willing and be ready to put the work in. All right. So do you want to open it up for questions, or do you want to do some highlights? Do we want to reflect on what we've experienced?
Let's go all the way to the end and then do
Okay.
questions.
All right. So what we'd love to do at the end of our webinars is reflect on what we've learned today. So what's something in this webinar that has been helpful for you? Because we've covered a lot of ground here. So in the chat, could you just type in real quickly, what is something in the webinar that's been helpful for you?
And choose panelists and all attendees, please.
Yeah.
So everyone can see it. Packet contents. Yeah, I find that really, I learned things on the webinars too, by the way. So yeah, packet contents. I think it was fantastic. Yeah, QR code. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are mentioning the pie chart. Covino, at some point, can we go back to that slide where the pie chart is displayed so they can see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and the questions that ask before leaving, yeah, those are great, because it puts you in a good position, including action in the mission statement. Totally. Yeah.
Learning the church culture. Good.
Yeah, not shying away from describing the need. So Mark Bussey, he works in the foster care system, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so sharing that need is so important. The difference
Questions
between
before
mission,
leaving.
yeah,
Go ahead.
absolutely. Questions before leaving. How to best communicate with the church. Yep. Yeah.
Facebook Live is a possible follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook Live, even you guys, I had one guy who got some pastors on his team, and they were all responsible for inviting pastors. And his goal was to invite 20 pastors to this Facebook Live. And the three of them, him and his two pastor friends, got on, and they did this hour-long. It was so fun. They had quizzes. He shared his vision and his mission and all kinds of stuff, and had endorsements from the other pastors. And then at the end, he asked all 20 of the pastors that were on to commit their churches to commit to $100 a month, and they raised $2,000 a month from churches in an hour. And it was really fun and very effective.
Wow. Of course, I don't know if we haven't shared this. Most people on the webinar probably know, but we provide one-on-one fundraising coaching for people who are developing funding for ministry. And, just what you just shared, Deb, that's what coaching is all about. Finding effective ways for you to develop partnership. And I don't know if anyone would have thought about that kind of event and how to make it effective unless they'd had coaching. So, we've covered a lot of information today, and we believe that if you commit your plans to the Lord, you will be blessed. But you may also feel overwhelmed or say, how do I tailor this to my specific situation? If you want to know more about how tailored and fundraising coaching could help you put these plans into action, or simply just raise more money in less time, I personally would love to talk with you. Marianne's going to put a link in the chat. And this is a way for you to find a time that works for you where you and I can connect. We can do it over video conference, or we can just do it over the phone. So right now, if you're interested in to know, how coaching or how could Tailored help me, click on that link and just find a time that works for you. Paulo would love to connect with you about that question. If you'll just click that link and sign up for a time to talk, that would be great. Let's see. We'll be staying on to answer more questions, but feel free to sign off. It's been great to be with you today, and we hope you're walking away with some valuable tips on how to better connect with churches. And thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a great day. Again, would love to talk with you personally about how Tailored could help you raise more money in less time. So be sure and click that link. So Marianne, yes, Deb.
Hang on, don't forget to join us for next month's webinar.
Oh yeah, we're going to be talking about maximizing summer fundraising. So please sign up for that. All right, Marianne, what do we have? Questions?
Okay, yes. So I think, Deb, I don't know if I was so busy answering different ones. I don't know if you answered this already, but the 4 categories of budget, so many people were asking for you to clarify that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kavina, can you scroll up to that slide? Is that possible? We have an example of a bio page or a 1-pager in our slides, and there's an example of a pie chart on that. And basically what you would do is you would take your line item budget, and I'm encouraging you to kind of group things together by impact, maybe only have 4 categories. So instead of having like housing and transportation, you might stick those things together, housing, transportation, taxes, stick those things together and say, this enables ministry to happen close. It allows us to live close to the community. If you're on campus staff, we're a mile away from the students, they can walk back and forth. So the impact that's going to happen there, or, line item budgets like your insurance, like your life insurance, your dental insurance, your health insurance, all of those types of things, group that together and put that under an impact category of being able to stay on the field. So here's being able to go, here's being able to stay.
You might even group like salary and benefits together. That could be helpful.
And even training expenses like personal development, professional development, ministry funds that you have, lump those all together under ministry funds or ministering to the people, something like that. Does that make sense? Meeting spiritual needs, something like that.
If you need more help with that, you can definitely talk with me. Marianne, if you put that link in the chat again, just sign up, just find a time that works for you. And I'm asking you to multitask, Marianne, but if you have another question that we can answer, that would be great.
Yes. Did you take into consideration the cultural differences, like establishing partnership with churches outside of your continent?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is question based, so that will serve you well when you're raising funds uh, outside of your context, or outside of a Western context, or even just a different country. Even different parts of the United States. The Northwest can be different than the Southeast. So being questions based is going to really help contextualize what you do with a church. That's what I would say.
Okay, and we have a clarification question. So we shouldn't include a one-pager with the financial breakdown in our church packet unless they ask for it. Yes or no?
No, you should include the one pager with the small pie chart, the 4 quadrants,
Which is part
financial
of
breakdown.
an overall one pager with
Yes.
mission and vision. Is that right?
Yes, and have the big budget breakdown, like your spreadsheet, big budget. If they ask for that specific line item budget, have that available in your backpack or your laptop case or wherever it is that you can give that to them if they ask. In other words, we don't want them to be able to look through every single line item budget that you have, because they might be like, wait, like, so that much is going to housing or that much is going here. It just gets them involved in the minutia of decisions that your organization's already made. So this is the example here. Kavina's put it up on the screen. So you're looking at, let me see if I can blow this up so I can see it better. Can you blow it up a little bit? The pie chart part?
I'm not sure she can.
Can she? Okay. Oops. All right. So we've got housing, taxes, and transportation are going to the people. And then we have the insurance is staying with the people. And then we've got training, personal development, ministry funds, all of that. The impact that's happening is we're meeting spiritual needs. What does that last one say? Monthly living expenses in the country, food, those kinds of things are the impact that's happening there. Is we're living in the country, we're living with our neighbors, we're shopping at the same places, all of those types of things. It's building long-term relationships in that community.
Yeah, and you're going to be getting an email in the next little bit, maybe in the next hour or so, and it's going to have this as a resource. We put together a folder for you with all of the resources in here. So,
and that's just an example. People do all different kinds of things, and when we meet with you for coaching, we take what you want to do and we put the impact that you're having, and we customize these specifically. We help you with these and we customize them specifically for you. And this one specifically was made on Canva.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for explaining all of that. So is it not counterproductive to ask how long the church's financial commitment will be with you? We have never asked, but the churches haven't stopped giving. So yeah, is that a conversation that you should have or you shouldn't have, just kind of assuming that they're going to support you forever? Or do you have that conversation?
Honestly, there's a lot of questions that I would want to ask around that situation. There are benefits to both. Totally get where you're coming from. And I would have the same question. So you probably want to talk to one of us about that. It's really hard to answer, right, Deb? What you say?
Yeah, I think it's specific to your situation and specific to your length of service as well. When they hear that you're going for 5 years, they might say, well, we only commit to people for 3 years.
Yeah,
or
but
maybe
that's
they
only
hear.
to ask. So you may want to ask over the next 5 years, would you be willing to commit to $100 a month or $1,000 a month?
Yeah, and sometimes church planters, they're only asking for 3 years because they're hoping to roll people off. So sometimes they ask in that situation.
That's a good question.
It depends.
It's a really good question.
Yeah, here's one from Jessica. So this is great. Assuming that you have permission from the leadership, how about raising support in a Southern Baptist church or a similar situation where the individuals are probably not used to individuals fundraising? So like, where you'd have like the IMB or, that type of situation, where individuals are not used to partnering with missionaries on an individual basis.
I have an answer. Deb, do you want to
I
go
do
for
too.
it?
Go for it. I think, invite everybody into a blessing.
Yeah,
This is wonderful for them.
I'll talk about the approach. You can talk about the philosophy.
The benefits.
Yeah, so the benefits. So the way we approach partnership is asking permission to ask. So you would never not ever, but normally you wouldn't sit down with somebody to talk to them about partnership unless you make it very clear that that's what it's about, and you allow them to say yes or no to that time, whether it's video chat or in person or a phone call. Whenever you're going to be presenting the ministry and asking them to partner with you, you make it very clear about what that conversation is going to be about beforehand and ask if they'd be interested in having that conversation. So that's how I'd approach it. But
yeah, I went one step further and assumed that you already had that conversation.
Yeah.
So assuming you've had that conversation, the benefits of inviting people into a blessing. It's God loves a cheerful giver, and it's more blessed to give than to receive. And thinking about that, these people really are, you're giving them an opportunity to do what Jesus tells them to do in Matthew 6:20 of laying up for yourself a treasure in heaven. Imagine that you're giving people an opportunity to do that, and they'll see brothers and sisters in Christ that they've never met before, but that they've had a hand in bringing to Christ, that they receive a reward for, that they get to throw at the feet of Jesus. Like, just a beautiful image.
Lastly, can you guys let everybody know how to find the recording of this webinar?
Yeah, so in the email you're going to be getting, there's going to be a link to our YouTube channel. You'll find past webinars, etc., on there. And this particular webinar should be uploaded to our YouTube channel shortly, so you can rewatch it. And I'd be very honored if you wanted. Yeah, you can watch all kinds of stuff, and I'd be very honored if you wanted to watch this again. So, all right, I think that's it. And we loved having y'all on here, and reach out if you need anything. We're always here to help. Everyone have a great day. See you later.
Bye, guys.